Hey everybody, we're back. Hopefully our connection is better now. I mean, it is at the moment, but hopefully it stays that way. We were experiencing massive lag problems and issues all over the place. So thanks to everybody who has stuck around with us, and we are going to go into a second video now. And we haven't had to do this in forever, and it's irritating, but let's move on, shall we? It's the third episode of The Batman. It's RPM, or not the third episode of The Batman, but the third episode we're watching this evening in the third season, and this one is really strange, and I'm excited to see what Austin's feelings are on this one. This is not one that I had seen, or at least I didn't remember it, and I feel like this one would have stuck with me, so I'm pretty sure I didn't see this before.
Yeah, I've definitely never seen this one, because I also have that.
Make sure you're at timestamp 0. Get ready to press play when I say now, and we're going to get right into it. If anybody comes in late and needs a timestamp, folks in the comments, please try to help them out. And here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
Chewbacca's lover says at Austin, which I won't see if people try to at me. But he says, did you get my super chat? I don't know. I wasn't looking for that, so I don't know if you saw.
Oh, goodness. If it was in the last show and I missed it in the middle of all the insanity and the hijinks, I may not have. So feel free to relist it in the comments there, not as a super chat, and I'll make sure and read it.
Yeah, I'm not a moderator, sir.
I feel like if you're trying to keep your identity a secret as a vigilante that drives a fast car, this may not be the smartest idea.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm a race for charity.
We go to quite a bit with Batman.
Hey, Bruce Wayne, how'd you get that good at race car driving? Well, I'm rich and I got a lot of time on my hands. Like I said earlier, I really like their Barbara Gordon. I like how much of a thrill seeker she is, and she just seems like a somewhat more sophisticated version of the Yvonne Craig Batgirl.
Yeah, and I've never seen 66 Batgirl, so that's really interesting.
Well, I will make sure and throw a Batgirl episode in when we do our mini marathon on that show, which might as well mention and announce that now. That is the other thing we're going to do this month for mini marathons. We're going to do a 66 one.
Yeah, 2 comics, 2 mini marathons for Bat March.
It's going to be great. So this, at first glance, and maybe at second and third glance, does not seem anything like a Batman villain. This strikes me as like a B or like a C or a D list. I don't know, like
Spider-Man villain,
maybe Daredevil villain, or like old school Spider-Man or Daredevil villain. This seems like that's what I couldn't quite get my finger on. This is not a DC villain. This is a Marvel villain. I mean, first of all, it's from such a sci-fi place in the first place, the nanotech thing, and I'll go as far as to say that if it is a Batman villain, it strikes me as a much more Batman Beyond-y kind of thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's completely reinvented here to be more high-tech too. Like if it's maybe just a guy in a car.
Well, and I need to look that up, because I don't know if Gearhead existed before this.
Chewbacca's lover just put in his super chat, which now that I'm reading it, I did see. It was just about how the 1960s Batman was a big influence on that, which we did talk about. I did say that this absolutely feels like a reinvention of that show.
Okay, he didn't start as a Batman villain, he started as a Steel villain.
Oh. Weird.
Yeah, unidentified. Well, hold on, it might not be technically the same character. I would need to spend some time figuring this out, potentially, if this is even really the same guy. Nathaniel Finch, first appearance, Detective Comics 712, but then, okay, and then there's a different Gearhead, maybe, that appeared a couple years before that in Steel. Okay, weird. So it is a Batman villain. This guy.
A guy who has one red eye and one green eye.
Yeah. Well, that's where all of his information comes in, I guess. So I was a little bit confused halfway through this episode with the big reveal of the nanotechnology, because Batman's like, he's not using nanotech, he is nanotech, and I'm like, oh, okay, is he like an AI that's built of a bunch of little mini robots? But then that doesn't seem to be the case by the end, where like it seems like he must have started as a man. Is he a cyborg?
That's what I think.
Made of man, where like he's got an arm made of nanotech. What's that?
You're like, oh, is he a cyborg made of man? That's what he's a robot made of man parts. Yeah, I think of the episodes we have for tonight, this is probably the weirdest one. And also, interestingly, the most Batmobile focused, and because last time when we did animated series, the Batmobile gets destroyed in, I think, like 3 of the 5 episodes we did.
That's right.
We get one here.
With a brand new car. Chewbacca's Lover, if you send another super chat, I don't see it as a super chat.
Oh, yeah, I think it's the one up a bit further where he's talking about how 60s Batman is a big influence on this show.
Is that the thing that he was saying was the super chat from before?
Yeah.
60s Batman was a big influence on this show. The creators said they wanted to do things that show would do, but playing it straight and taking it seriously, specifically the death traps. And it's interesting because Brave and the Bold sort of had that too, except that was supposed to be even kitschier than this, and was supposed to be like what kids thought they were watching, and then as an adult we make it more of that. But this is, you know, obviously a more serious and less Saturday morning cartoon thing even than Brave and the Bold was. So there's this weird history with serious Batman where the longer Batman is on screen, like a particular iteration of it, or even I guess just too many of them in a row, the closer and closer we edge back to 66. This happens all the time. I'm thinking about making a video about how we can't get away from 66, and that like everything, even when the mission statement is get people to stop thinking that Batman is this cheesy, kitschy character or campy character, I should say, there's still usually a lot of reference for that, and even a lot of
Bruce Wayne does the Bat
straight up influence from it. What's that?
So somebody in the chat says that Bruce Wayne does the Bat-Tusi in Titans.
That's crazy.
But no, I agree that we do have that where we slowly edge our way back there. I can't wait for the 6th Robert Pattinson Batman film where he's just straight up dancing with people.
In the next Robin Pattinson Batman, he's got the atomic pile.
Yeah, and he's like, "Come on, old chum, we gotta go stop Mr. Freeze. He's a new villain in town."
Senior Sticks, $2 super chat. Cap, do you do the Bat-Tusi? I do not. I don't dance in general. It's just not a thing I do.
I do it in my first YouTube video.
Chewbacca's Lover. Yeah, and this is absolutely a lot of the reason. A lot of people that do serious Batman also grew up with 60s Batman and love it like you do. And also, when that's your first influence and a lot of what you know about the character, you're likely to, and this is true with anything, you're likely to subconsciously find yourself putting in stuff and not even realize where it came from. And then you're like, oh, I guess I knew that from 60s Batman. But like, I'm not saying this is necessarily what happened in things like Batman Returns, but I could see somebody in a script going, let's have Penguin steal the Batmobile. That seems like a thing Penguin would do. Oh, he did that before? Oh, yeah, okay, I guess I got that from an episode. Like, I could see that happening.
Well, that was one of the weirdest parts of the Batman, the new one, was when the Riddler tries to slide down the pole into the Batcave, and then Batman hits the button that shoots him back up, and he keeps going, like, back and forth. It's like, why would Matt Reeves choose to put that in the movie?
Would you stop it?
And Bruce Wayne's like, riddle me this, Riddler. What won't stop you?
So at first, I was like, I'm not understanding why so many people wanted us to watch this particular episode, because it seems like just an excuse for a bunch of car chases. And the action in this episode is really good. But I'm like, it just seems like kind of a weird throwaway episode with a villain that has this obsession with race cars. And then I realized that, oh, it's an important sort of status quo changing episode because it gave us this new Batmobile. And I knew the car changed, but I didn't realize it was an in-continuity thing that actually happens in an episode and then is different forevermore. That's pretty cool that actually happens. And then I was like, well, maybe people were trying to pick it just because it was important in that way. And then it just keeps adding weird stuff the farther it goes. Where I'm like, no, we've got a villain that turns into cars when you thought that he was just sort of stealing them. And like, it just gets crazier and crazier. Like, I totally get why people wanted us to watch this.
Well, and quite a few people were picking things based on actors that were in episodes.
Oh, okay.
And the guy who plays Gearhead is Batman Beyond.
Oh, okay. Somebody earlier was saying something about Terry McGinnis, and I wasn't sure why. And so it's interesting that in a villain, or in an episode where I'm saying the villain seems like he should be in Batman Beyond, they got the guy who played Batman Beyond to play that villain? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, and then I guess, they get Frank Gorshin for Hugo Strange, which was another one that a lot of people wanted.
I'm just wondering if that's part of why they went to that actor, because it was a more futuristic seeming villain. Is that what you said, that he's the guy who voices Terry McGinnis?
Yeah.
Interesting, because I didn't pick that out either. I feel like a lot of these performances, the actors are disappearing more than they do in animated series for me, but just with the ones that we're watching this evening.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've never watched Batman Beyond outside of Return of the Joker, so I wouldn't have recognized his voice. Because that's also not a movie I know super well.
And you haven't seen any Batman Beyond at all, right?
No, just that movie.
And like I said before, we'll do a mini marathon on that at some point.
Yeah, I need to look at some of the other DCAU shows.
They're wonderful. I think it's too easy that Batgirl can just drive Batman's motorcycle. I mean,
no, it absolutely is.
I mean, the odds of somebody dropping from the sky onto your car or onto your motorcycle while it's in autopilot is not super likely, but considering the kinds of missions Batman finds himself on and the sheer number of, roof-jumping characters that he deals with on a regular basis, I might build in some way that you can't just turn off autopilot if you're just some random person who jumps onto the motorcycle. It's also a little easy that the motorcycle looks as if it was designed for her and not him.
I also think it's funny that he has no failsafe for that. Like, he goes, oh, it's not responding. Oh, that figures. When he sees it go by.
You'd think by remote.
Yeah, you'd think he would have some sort of failsafe where even if somebody's on it, he can, trigger it.
And I think he sometimes controls his car by remote in the show, but I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, and that is a go-to for Batman stuff, but maybe it has to be specifically in autopilot for it to do that.
Brian, I'd forgotten about that. Will Freddy is his name. That's right. Not Freddy, Fetal. It just didn't come to me right away. But yeah, Brian says he also voiced Nightwing in the Batman Unlimited movies. I forgot about that. And some Lego stuff. I didn't realize he did any Lego stuff.
Favorite movies.
Super Billy, was the really solid initial Clayface episode selected for this marathon? No, only because
Cap would not have it.
And people asked about it. Say it again.
Said Cap would not have it. Well, we weren't doing two-parters either, but
that's part. Well, those aren't. Well, I guess the first one is a cliffhanger, isn't it? Or no, it's just 2 episodes at the end of the first season. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's yeah.
But no, the reason I didn't want to do that is because I did a whole Batmosphere on that. So, I mean, I've talked at length about those episodes. Mm-hmm. And this is a show I haven't covered much, so I wanted to do something I haven't done and see some episodes that I'm not familiar with. You guys will have to forgive me. It's real late, and I'm kind of fading, and I'm trying to get myself back in action here.
I didn't realize you were a Looney Tune.
I'm slurring my speech. And what'd you say? You didn't realize I was a Looney Tune? What?
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't realize you were a Looney Tune. You're back in action.
It could have been a Power Rangers reference just as easily. I guess Maybe. I'd be back to action. Never mind.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that. I thought RPM and SPD were one show called RPD. For
Jack
like
Napier,
years.
Batman Unlimited is the Batman, but bad, and was specifically made to sell toys. I have to disagree with that, but I don't know that it's fair to without going back to them, because the only way I've watched those movies was talking over them with Eric when we did Batmania. And so those first two seemed real fun, while I didn't have to pay super close attention to everything. But like, it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot going on, but the dialogue was kind of fun. So yeah, they are toy commercials, but I thought for what they were clever and enjoyable. And then I remember the third one being really awful. So I was, even while talking over them, doing blind commentaries, I felt like I was able to see a massive decline in quality from the first two to the third. When I do eventually do rewinds or a rewind on those, I will do them as one video. There's no way there's enough meat on the bone to separate those out. As soon as they went to this junkyard and I saw the magnet thing, the first thing that came to my mind was, you killed Captain Clown.
I mean, that's one of the best Joker quotes of all time. Bob the Hun asks if we.
Oh, Jack Napier says, I think maybe I've only seen the third one. That would explain that. Maybe go back and check out the first one. I mean, you're not missing a lot if you don't, but I enjoyed it.
Bob the Hun asks if we think the show's old enough to be brought back for nostalgia. No, the show's not remembered.
I don't think the show is remembered, which is weird because I think it's a fine show.
Yeah, no, this seems to be the forgotten Batman show, which I guess there's kind of a few. Like, Beware the Batman's also just kind of gone.
Yeah, but that didn't catch on in the first place is the difference. This show was popular. I mean, it was on for 5 years. Beware the Batman, people that watched it seemed to like it, but it didn't get any traction and was canceled prematurely. And to some degree, I think well, okay, I was going to say to some degree maybe Brave and the Bold also has that, but I think Brave and the Bold fits more in a cult category, where there's like a faction of Batman fans that adore that show and still go back to it and talk about it. And a lot of people that don't never bothered with it in the first place because it wasn't their thing. Like, that's a real niche kind of show, even more so than this is, I would say. And that was able to come back,
not for a show, but for that Scooby-Doo crossover.
For that Scooby-Doo crossover, yeah. And I don't think anybody would think to bring this back.
Mm-hmm. No, if they announced Scooby-Doo meets the Batman, everyone would be like, what? And especially now with the movie, I think every time you say the Batman,
it will really get supplanted
it will be
now.
The movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you'll have to say the cartoon show. There is a lot of car chase.
Which is unfortunate, but that's the way it goes sometimes.
Jack Napier says, a lot of people consider this their definitive Batman that I've talked to who grew up around this time. I haven't really met anybody that has that myself, but I'm also...
The Patreon Discord, there's quite a few people that are even younger than I am, and a lot of them were like, oh, the Batman. I remember that. Like, I haven't thought about that in years.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of the reaction to, hey, this is what we're doing tonight.
Well, and I think a lot of that is probably because the aesthetic is so not traditional that it just doesn't come to you immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's been so much since that. I guess what I mean is most versions of Batman that are remembered that we talk about a lot, like things that came after it used things from it, like kept, it kept building on itself. And this was kind of off in its own little pocket. It didn't create any characters that anybody kept using. Like, this Gearhead guy is, I think, probably the only time that he's been adapted in anything. I guess this is an invention for this show, but I don't think this show really invented anything that people kept using, and it didn't have any definitive takes on anything. where people kept doing that one, like with Mr. Freeze with the animated
like
series.
Mr. Freeze or with Harley in terms of creating a new character.
Yeah. But it reinvented a lot of things that had been done more recently, like Harley Quinn and stuff. Although I think their Harley Quinn is kind of just Harley Quinn.
And that was her first episode's written by Dini.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. But I don't think a lot of the darker versions of Riddler are looking at this.
Yeah. Well, and
most of the time we look at like Saw and stuff like that. Like we just look at things that we can kind of make Riddler like.
That's true. Yeah, so you're suggesting that even places where you might be able to draw some comparisons with this show with versions we do later, it might be coincidence before anybody was looking at this show.
Mm-hmm.
Or just some, the same thing in the air. We didn't talk hardly about that episode at all.
That's okay. He got in a car. He was able to transform it into a Tron car. That was the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the main thing he needed that car to do was just to, like, deprogram the nanobots when he plugs himself into it. And I wasn't totally sure why he couldn't just build that into the car he had before. Or did we actually destroy the Batmobile? I can't even remember.
No, they like fully blew up the Batmobile.
Oh, okay, so you did have to make a new car. So I guess you'd soup it up, and like it was faster and stuff, so it was easier to go up against his tag.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, people in the comments are disagreeing with us on the popularity of the show of the show, and that people do still talk about it. A couple people saying like this is their definitive Batman and that kind of thing. So I mean, the way the world is these days, and like pockets of interest on the internet and stuff, I feel like we're all, as much as we might try to help it, kind of isolated in our own like different communities and bubbles and things. So I always hesitate when I say like this thing doesn't seem to still matter anymore, because there's always some pocket somewhere where it's the only thing anybody cares about and what they talk about.
Yeah, we had
there's a whole Discord for this, I'm sure. Like,
we had the Danny Phantom thing. I was like, oh, this is a really big show, and you were like, I've never heard of that. It'll probably do okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've been doing this for 13 years. I've never heard anybody talk about that show. And then it did like 1,300 views, and I was like, why did people show up for this?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that there was still interest in that. And I guess after that, I would say that seems like a thing that is much more likely to come back in some form than this.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But I will double down on my point that it doesn't seem to have had the lasting impact that something like Batman the Animated Series, or even Beyond, or a lot of other incarnations of Batman have.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's maybe because it's kind of sandwiched. I think it starts a little bit before it begins, but it's kind of sandwiched right in that point of the begins to Dark Knight thing, where Dark Knight completely like changed how people saw Batman, whether you like that or not. Like,
well, and after the first couple of years, I remember thinking, like, being surprised that this was still on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. It's back when we could at least get a Batman show.
Okay, let's go ahead and get to our fourth episode for this evening. It's
the only one I picked.
It's Strange New World. Hey, I asked you if there's anything else you wanted to do instead, but
so it was like, even for your season 4 one, I was like, I'm cool with that. Or we could do this other one. It's up to you.
No, I'm glad that you had me change this one, because this episode is awesome.
Yeah, no, I remember this when it aired, watching it as a kid and being like, oh my god, like, it was kind of like, I think how a lot of people thought of, what's that animated series?
It's Perchance to Dream with Zombies. That's what it is. Right?
Yeah, that too, but I was thinking specifically Over the Edge.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's that too, yeah. But I also kind of put those in the same category, because they're both episodes where you get to the end and you find out the whole thing was kind of a dream.
No, of course, but I think Over the Edge specifically because it's like, oh man, like Batgirl died, the cops are coming down on Batman, like
Yeah.
everything's done, like,
Yeah, this
and it's
feels like post-apocalyptic at the beginning, and then you find out it's only been 48 hours, and you're like, wait, what? Like, this one keeps you guessing. It's cool. And it's also nice that when you get to the end, it all happened, but not the way you thought it did. So it's not over the edge again.
yeah, no, it's different, and I remember as a kid being like, whoa,
But, like,
like
the stakes are there.
I had no idea, and this is also after the Dracula movie, so they could have gone there.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and they had really similar sensibilities, obviously. Like, you can tell that, okay, there's some people here that really like Gothic horror, and they've got the right aesthetic with their city for Gothic horror. They just don't tell a lot of those kinds of episodes, even though they can get to creepy kinds of places. This is a genuinely disturbing-looking episode for a thing aimed at 9-year-olds, and my sons, Freddie and Mikey, so 7 and 3, respectively, watched this with me and loved it. But both through the whole thing kept going, this is really scary. And I'm like, is it too scary? They're like, nah. And they're like really into it. When we got to the end of it, Mikey again, my 3-year-old, Mikey goes, can we watch another zombie movie?
Yeah, I can't remember because I don't know exactly what year this came out, but I remember as a kid being like, whoa, like how is Batman going to be able to get out of this? Like, this is crazy.
Bob the Hun keeps bringing up Hush, so I'll just read this real quick because he apparently wants to talk about this. But it says, have you guys heard about the direct-to-video Hush film that was almost made? The show was almost going to have its own version of Hush. I had heard that it was supposed to do that character. It never did, but I didn't know that there was a movie. I knew that there was talk of more movies they never did, but I didn't know that was one of them.
Yeah, no, I knew that they were supposed to do Hush at some point, but I didn't know, like, how or what.
But, yeah, and they didn't seem to be on the pulse like animated series kind of was to some degree. Like, they weren't adapting a ton of, like, super recent stuff.
No, I think...
Or were they, and I just don't realize it because I haven't seen every episode of the show.
I feel like this show is mostly coming up with original plot lines, but I could be completely wrong about that. Because it's been so long since I've watched the show. But like most of the ones that we watched tonight, I don't know if there's anything where I'm like, oh, that's pulling from this.
Yeah. And like the more modern Batman villains they would do were usually things that animated series did, and they would just do their own totally different version of it.
Yeah, exactly.
They do Bane really early. And he's
insane.
I guess that crazy Bane
Nightfall
model.
I guess they kind of do Nightfall in one episode. Because he also breaks Batman in that. And then
but Nightfall had already happened, of course, at the point that they did Bane in an animated series, too. Like, it wasn't super... It's not like it had just happened. Like, when they did an animated series, it was, only a year or two old at that point.
Yeah. Oh, I guess what are they going to pull from 2000s? Like, Orca?
Well, that's a really good point, too. Like, Hush would have been the big thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Of a brand new villain. That's a good point. Let's go ahead and get into this. So, get it to timestamp 0. Make sure you're watching Strange New World. According to HBO Max, it's Season 3, Episode 5, but it's actually Season 4 proper. And if you need a timestamp or anything, let us know. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Everybody, please press play right now. So yeah, I fell in love with this immediately. I had never seen this one, and it rocked my socks off, man. This is one of those episodes where it'll do things that I kind of question at first, and then I go, nah, that was the right call for this episode in this show. Like, I don't usually like the whole in Medias Res where you cheat and you go backwards. It works okay here because it's in a framework. So he's giving us a log, and that's how we get the voiceovers, and he's got to talk to himself because there's nobody else around for him to talk to. And also, the whole premise of this episode is we're in a like post-apocalypse that just happened, and you do want to give us that up front. I mean, I think this is one of those rare cases where I actually am really drawn into this and am not feeling bored when you go backwards to show us how it happens. Like, they did win me over on that framework. And I usually hate that. That's a huge pet peeve of mine in comics especially. But it really works here. That is just a killer teaser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
Just
exactly.
killer.
I also really like the image of their Batman with stubble.
Yep. And it turns out that, because it looks like a Batman that's possibly been operating for months or years in this, and the stubble would tell you that, well, he doesn't have time to shave, but it's actually a clue that he just hasn't slept in the last 48 hours, and 2 days ago we were in regular status quo for this show.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
another
great.
big thing I think of with this show is Hugo Strange, so I am glad that we did get an episode with him tonight, because he is one of the villains that I think of with this show.
I want to say when they introduce Hugo Strange in this show, they do that thing where like Batman doesn't know that he's a crazy person right away, and he's like a recurring
I think he's
character.
just like a side character for a while,
isn't he? Yeah,
I think so. But yeah, I think he just works at Arkham at the beginning of or like when they introduce him.
Oh, Thomas, I forgot about that. He says, I also love how the show does Batgirl and Poison Ivy. They were best friends in this show. That's right. I forgot they did that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that, too.
So, I'm watching this with my kids this afternoon, and Mikey goes, wait, I thought zombies were slow. And I was like, well, sometimes they're fast. I guess this is doing like 28 Days Later zombies. And then
And
you
he
get
looked at you like, what?
Then you get the well, I didn't say that to him, but you know, I was just thinking that. And then you get to the end, and it turns out that Batman's seeing zombies that aren't actually zombies, but there also were zombies. It's both. And God, it's just it's such a cool reveal. And it does a really good job of giving you all of the pieces to put it together before it gives you the answer at the end. It's super tightly plotted. This is a Joseph Kerr episode.
It is a Joseph Kerr episode. Joseph Curry wants to watch the city burn.
Chewbacca's Lover, the creators have said Hugo Strange is the main villain of the show.
That's how I've
the arch
always kind of
nemesis.
seen it.
Is he in enough of it to say that? Because
I remember as a kid
I just haven't watched enough of
thinking
the
that
show.
he was like the main villain of the show. Like I remember as a kid thinking he was kind of like the Kingpin in 90s Spider-Man. Not obviously the same type of character, but that same kind of overall presence. But it's been so long now.
Which is funny because when Batman walks in here and Hugo Strange says, I've been working on something I want to show you, I was just imagining him going, I've got these big robot octopus arms.
Well, it would have been awesome if he was like, I've been working on this, and Batman opens the thing and there's just 4 monster men in his cell. It is cool that
He looks like Doc Ock to me.
Yeah, no, he definitely has that. Which is funny because the animated series Hugo Strange looks like a peanut. He's got a really weird head.
That's true, but he's certainly based on the traditional model for that in the comics.
No, of course. It is cool that they went to him, though, as one of their big villains, because the animated series only used him once. And that's kind of a shame because Hugo Strange is awesome.
That's true, but at least they adapted from a really good Hugo Strange story.
No, his episode is one of the best ones of that show. It's just too bad that they didn't go back to him more, because Hugo Strange is a really cool villain.
Yeah, that's Englehart.
Yep.
Story.
I just rewatched that episode recently.
Did we?
No, I did.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant for our marathon. I'm like, we didn't watch that episode.
Oh, no. That's
because that's the one where they're auctioning off the identity of Batman, right?
Yep, which is like 2 issues before Laughing Fish.
Yeah. Yeah, they're, I think, in the same trade.
They are because they're the same run, yeah. Because Batman, or like those 3 villains go to that auction, and then he takes them out in each issue after. And the Joker one is the Laughing Fish.
Jack Napier says Hugo Strange comes the closest to beating Batman. I think that's why they said that. That makes a lot of sense. Robert Wild, Hugo Strange was initially voiced by Frank Gorshin in this show. He might be a different voice by this point. And you were telling me about that the other day. I forgot about that. Or I didn't realize it. I knew Gorshin was somewhere in this show, but you told me he voiced a couple of characters, right?
I think just
Hugo Or was
Strange.
It just that?
Yeah, it's Hugo Strange, and then he dies, and then they replace him.
Okay, that's what you were saying. And this being season 4, I'm sure he's passed by now.
I think so, too. I don't know if he's out in anything outside of season 2. It might just be that first season.
One of the last things I saw Gorshin in before he died was a really goofy live-action superhero show on the Sci-Fi Channel called Black Scorpion, and he was a bad guy in that. I'm sure it's terrible. That's
where he plays the Rattler, the villain that can rattle your brain.
I used to know his villain name in that. It's not coming to me right now. Bob the Hunt, a lot of people consider this version of Hugo Strange the definitive version before Arkham City. Well, and this felt like an Arkham City scale plot. Like, you could have almost replaced his plot in Arkham City with this. Like, this could have been Protocol 10, just turn everybody into zombies.
Could you imagine if you got to the end of that game and the zombies? That would be nuts. You didn't expect that, did you, Batman?
So his whole plan... this is such an amazing reveal. I think a lot of why
the lighting on them is really cool.
I think that's a lot of why I enjoyed this so much. Is it's some of the best storyboards of the stuff I've seen from the show, and they clearly put a ridiculous amount of effort into this one. Like I don't know, somebody was just really excited about this idea, like doing zombies in a Batman thing. He talks like Doomsday. I was saying something. I can't remember where we were going there. All these reveals are great. Where like you think you're fighting with Batgirl, and then it turns out she's also a zombie, and then again you get to the end, and it turns out that she's not a zombie.
With Hugo Strange too, I think he'll probably be one of the bigger villains of the new show, that Cape Crusader show.
Maybe so.
Because they're trying to go for like a more 40s aesthetic. So I think they're going to go back to a lot of villains.
Well, he's a good mad scientist kind of character. And I think a lot of people forget how far back that character goes. Like, he's a really early Batman villain. Which is why they put him in the Batman vs. Two-Face animated 66 movie. Because they have a cameo with Harley Quinn in that, but that's the only modern villain they do there. They made a big deal out of those movies.
Really strange.
It is strange, but they were like, those movies, we only want to go to villains that could have existed back then, because it was like, let's try to make movies that you could have maybe made if money was no object in 1966, and that was the same kind of mission statement of the comics too. But anyway, Hugo Strange is in that and comes up with with the technology that they used in that with Two-Face.
So you know what I wish they did for that with Hugo Strange is because in Gotham we had what's his face as Hugo Strange, BD Wong.
BD Wong, yeah.
I wish they went with an Asian one and cast George Takei as Hugo Strange.
That'd be great.
Movie. That'd have been awesome.
It'd be great.
Because he's just kind of comic book Doctor Strange, which is a little strange when you have so much. The word strange comes up a lot when you talk about Mr. Hugo. But it is a bit weird when you also have like their Two-Face, which is just William Shatner.
Yeah, and a really ridiculously good performance.
Yeah,
from Shatner. He's
awesome.
Really good in that. But no, earlier with the Protocol 10 thing, this is where I was going with all of that. So his plan then would have been, let's get as many people, let's come up with excuses to get as many people thrown into an outdoor prison with Arkham City as possible, and then make them all zombies, and now we have an army to take over the rest of the city. That's what the plot would have been.
No, you know what would be even better is if they became zombies, then he sold them to the military.
He sold them to the military where they have guns where they can point the zombies places, but they're really slow-moving, lumbering zombies. Oh man, I love it. I love it so much. I did not call the ending of this.
Oh no.
No, and like I said, all the pieces were there. I knew something was off. Like when he's there in the first place and they have the antidote, I'm like, this can't be what they're pretending like it is. Like something else is going on. But the idea,
especially because Batman sets it up like, don't trust Hugo Strange. He will mess with your head.
yeah. And the idea that he's able to almost manipulate Batman into being the catalyst to put out the toxin in the first place is a really cool idea. And it shows you just like how well he's able to match wits with this Batman. Now this doesn't seem like I don't know. Like I said, from the beginning of this, I always felt like this Batman was a little bit too gadget driven. But I guess the more of the show I've seen, he's at least got quite a bit of ingenuity. Like he's a really clever Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes he seems a little bit too smart, and I'm not sure how exactly he gets there, like with the riddles and all of that. But he is really good at kind of like. And I guess this is a real traditional Batman thing of being able to kind of like suss out a character of a person and then figure out what their like mental weakness is and turn that against them. Like, you know, he kind of does that. We didn't talk about this, but that really cool 20 questions thing at the end of that Riddler episode, like he kind of does that with the Riddler. And
yeah, no, absolutely. That part's really great.
Now I'm talking to myself.
Robin's a zombie. Must investigate further.
Human bean juice.
Zombie bean juice.
He's like, you stole my motorcycle, you zombie!
All the zombies will look up and say, save me. I will look down and whisper, okay.
But yeah, this could have just as easily been a Scarecrow plot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or it could have been like Hugo Strange using other villains to do things. So like he could have used, and it's fine that he doesn't. But I was a little surprised that this wasn't Scarecrow toxin. Is Scarecrow in this show?
If they could, no, they'd never use Scarecrow.
Well, then that's probably why, because characters that they couldn't use, they found ways to fit into other villain motifs. So, like, their Two-Face is their Clayface. So, yeah. I guess I could argue, is this too much of a stretch that their Hugo Strange is also their Scarecrow?
Yeah, I could see that, because he also works at Arkham, which is a very typical Scarecrow thing to...
Was that a character they weren't allowed to use because it begins? It must have been.
Yep.
And they don't have a Ra's in the show either.
Yep. Yeah, they couldn't use either of those. It's a good thing none of these movies have been like, oh, Joker's going to be in our movie. You can't use that character.
I think something else that threw me off from guessing the ending of this is that you have ostensibly a built-in way to get out of all of this, and then it turns out that that's not really the direction we were going. So, like, when you say you have... I mean, the stakes are real, but when you say Gotham's turning into a society of zombies... We live in a society. When it's all becoming zombies, but there's an antidote, and as long as we use it in 48 hours, we'll be fine. Okay, so what's going to happen is everybody turns into zombies, and then Batman's got 48 hours, and he's ultimately going to reverse that. But it isn't exactly that. Like, some people will turn into zombies, and he does have to fix that, but it's not the whole city like he thinks it is. That's in his mind. So... I think that's one of the things that kind of threw me off, because I thought we were just trying to de-zombify everybody, where what the real stakes are is preventing Batman from making everybody into zombies.
Good call, Brian.
Yeah.
Dracula, I would say, is probably their Ra's al Ghul. Good call on that.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
I wish he came back.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I don't know. I mean, I
Well,
guess
I don't
Jack
see how.
always
I don't
comes
see how.
back.
No, that's true.
He always finds a way.
I mean, that's true too. The color choices in the post-apocalyptic section of this is
Yeah, I like the orange glint on
really
Batman.
cool. Yeah,
It's not a color I
and
typically
really
think
sticks
of
with
for the
you.
character, but it works really well here. It almost reminds me of the cover of, I think it's Haunted Night, the third Jeff Loeb Tim Sale book
Oh,
that
good
nobody
call.
remembers, but it's got
Yeah.
like an orange cover.
Well, and there's kind of a pastel looking thing we're doing with the art in this section,
Hmm.
with at least the backgrounds. I like when he says "we'll see." Real briefly, I'll just cover the super chats. Senior Sticks, $2 super chat. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. Do you know of Stan Lee almost Power Rangers? I don't know if he's talking about the fact that Stan Lee was trying to get something like Power Rangers made well before that actually happened, but yes, that is a thing, and you can learn about that in the Power Rangers episode of The Toys That Made Us.
Weird. I did not know that.
Yeah, well, and of course, Power Rangers doesn't happen without Stan Lee because the whole tokusatsu stuff it begins with the Japanese Spider-Man. So
Yep.
any way you slice it, you have Stan Lee to thank for Power Rangers. I don't know if that's what he's talking about, but... I'm just obsessed with this reveal at the end, but the other thing that's really cool about it is it seems like his sidekicks are zombies fighting him, and then we'll find out that the reason they're all over him is because they're actually trying to help him and stop him from what he's about to do.
Yeah, no, Batman's basically a terrorist in this episode.
Well, he didn't do it on purpose.
You know, he was persuaded by some bad ideas.
Well, I mean, you know, it was all drug induced.
You can get the insanity plea then.
Yeah, there's something really provocative about just a Batman model in red like that I always like. It's kind of like Batman in snow. Just something about it, like when like red glow of fire is bouncing off him.
Yeah, we're talking about that on the Discord today, on the Patreon Discord, about how just Batman and Christmas is a very just cool image. It's cool whenever we go to that.
I don't remember if it's this episode or somewhere else, but I remember watching this today and going, it's weird how much Batman talks to himself. Like, in this episode, most of it's voiceover, because he's actually making a log. Well, I can't remember where it was, but there was some place where he just walks into a room, he's not making a recording, he's just talking to himself for the sake of the audience, and I thought it was really funny. Zombie Gordon still got glasses on.
I mean, he's Reno Romano. He was Spider-Man.
But that Ray Romano, he is a talented guy.
Everybody loves him, except when he tries to turn everyone into zombies. Then they don't love him so much.
Well, I think
How
one
is
of the
there
reasons
never oh, sorry, what?
I was just gonna say, I think one of the reasons I was impressed with this is it wasn't an obvious zombie story. Like, something about most of them not actually being zombies at the end, it felt like a writer with a lot of integrity to me, because it didn't feel like, an excuse to do a really gimmicky thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, like you said, less like Over the Edge. I keep wanting to call it Edge of Time. That's a Spider-Man game.
And Edge of Tomorrow is a completely different thing.
Exactly. But you kind of lose that, like, oh, it was just a dream thing, and there were actual stakes.
Yeah. Yeah, in some ways it makes it I don't. I mean, I don't want to say better than those episodes because I love those, but like it's less gimmicky than that. Because both of those episodes, I feel like I should like less than I do because there's stuff that never happened. Episodes it wasn't actually real by the end. But the execution is so good, I don't end up caring. Here, it's almost a weird opposite thing where I like it even more when I find out that it's not what I thought it was.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's almost scarier than if it's what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Because of what Batman almost does. It's great. That's my review. Robert Wild, $2 super chat. I love how Batman is almost the villain in this. Yeah, exactly.
Duality of man. One person says Hugo Strange in Arkham City is disappointing. The next person says he was really great.
Yeah, people are somewhat polarized on some of the story stuff in that game. I was always, and obviously I've done a rewind on that, and I've talked about this at length, but I was always real mixed on how Ra's al Ghul was utilized in that game.
That's the biggest story issue I have with it.
I kind of think maybe that game should have been made without him entirely, but
yeah, I just always thought it was weird to have your main villain lose like halfway through the game, and then he shows up at the end like, it was me all along. Like, I'm not scared of you. I beat you down earlier and told you were crazy.
So our last episode for this evening is The End of the Batman, which is an intentionally misleading title and one of the weirder title choices for an episode I've seen in a thing. Austin's got to get his disc.
It is definitely weird. It should have been called The Bats of Wrath.
Well, because you'll get titles like this with things, of course, where obviously it's not actually literally what the title is, because we're going to have more show. This isn't the last episode of the show, and they're not going to get rid of they're going to actually kill their Batman in their show, even if it was the last episode. But you get things like in animated series like The Man Who Killed Batman, where the whole episode is about a world that thinks that Batman is dead, but he's actually faking his death. And in this, if you know the episode title going in, you're waiting the whole episode to see why it's even called that. And then you get to the end of the episode, and the title is only relevant for about 19 seconds.
Well, how gutsy would it have been if this episode ended with, like, Batman getting his head blown off by a shotgun, and then the rest of the show is about Robin.
And also by Joker, he just walks up at the end and he's like, nobody's gonna unmask Batman but me. And if we're that close anyway, boom!
Yeah, Joker walks up, he gasses the other two, and Robin's like, oh, I guess that worked out for us. And then Joker shoots Batman and leaves.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves. So, End of the Batman is season 4, episode 10. The title of the show is in the episode. Season 4, episode 10, if you're watching it on HBO Max. It is in season 5.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure that you're at timestamp 0. I'm going to go ahead and get started here in just a minute, as soon as Austin is ready.
I am already good.
Oh, you already got it set up?
Yep.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and just get right into it. If you need a timestamp, let us know. Last episode for this evening. I hope you guys have had a good time with us. I certainly have had a lot of fun myself, and glad to finally do a little bit more content on this show. A show I wish I knew better, but I hopefully will at some point sit down and finally watch all of this. Here we go. Everybody please press play right now. You can't watch a Warner Brothers TV show without Warner Brothers ball cap. Shinkai, Batman doesn't die, but when he does, he travels through time to stop his death.
Well, and
that's true.
I also thought that was really weird that the last half hour of the Batman movie was that he dies and then goes back in time. This was a very strange choice.
I wasn't expecting Darkseid Omega beams, but there they were. Tom, what are your thoughts on the Gotham basketball team being called the Gotham Knights? Great show tonight, guys. Thanks. I've talked about that with Rises, and it's not always called that. They did it there. I mean, there's some other places where they do too.
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on
I think
the
sometimes it's other things.
They also put the Robin R on one of the signs.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I've never cared for it unless you're basing it on Batman in the first place, where it's like, here's this urban legend or even a public figure, depending on the continuity, and like as a tribute to Batman, we call it the Gotham Knights. But when it goes back decades, it just seems too convenient to me.
Yeah. At least it's not called like the Gotham Jokers or Riddlers or something like that.
Well, that would just be in poor taste.
That'd be like
that casino in that animated series episode.
Well, and here there's a London in Ontario, and they had a baseball team called the London Rippers, and people protested it because they were so mad. I guess it was too soon.
But yeah, Austin, I mean, listen to how upbeat this song is and the way this intro ends. You couldn't still have the Batman. It's got to be moodier than that. It wouldn't work. Like, you got da-da-da-da-da, the Batman. Like, you couldn't have it at that point.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It makes me sad. What if they tried to have, like, a more upbeat one where it's like, the Batman.
The Batman!
Oh, you know what it could have been? Because it's like, at the end, and it's like, the Batman!
You just getting by in there? You sneak it in? I had this thought, what if Wrath and Scorn in the show were like a thrown under the bus version of Knight and Squire, and they made him British?
Yeah, that would have been pretty sweet.
Because we've done this kind of thing actually a decent amount in comics since this, where we'll have a like Batman and Robin-esque duo that comes in to either go up against Batman and Robin or to kind of homage them in some way. Like that's the Gotham thing with Tom King's run. But what do you think of this as an idea? The anti-Batman and Robin who are rich people because their parents were thieves, and they don't like Batman and Robin because they make the world difficult for criminals.
This is very much just like, the quintessential like cartoon idea thing that like certain shows do. Like, the show Smiling Friends on Adult Swim this year. One of the episodes is the Frowning Friends, where you get just like the opposite one. Like that's a go-to.
Yeah.
For a lot of these.
It's
kinds of shows.
Negadoc, right?
Yeah. The Nega Chin from Fairly Odd Parents, except the Crimson Chin and.
Again, it's that weird juxtaposition, that weird balance that it strikes, where it's a Saturday morning cartoon show, and then you get to the end and it gets really freaking dark.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, our troubles are gone now. They're dead.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah. I think maybe I should have said this earlier, because I think what I'm really picking up on with the show is that it's a Batman show that looks like some other cartoon that keeps surprising you with Batman things. So I thought we were going to end up with a whole night of the Batman episodes without any Joker, and I was surprised when he showed up in this.
Yeah, I was too. And Harley's there. She's not voiced.
She's not even voiced. She's just driving the car.
Yep, she is there.
Is she like Robin, where she just has a learner's permit? Where she's like I don't know how old
Like
their Harley
Batgirl?
Quinn is, but no, Batgirl, yeah. Wait, no, is it Batgirl or is it
Batgirl,
Robin?
Yeah.
That's
Batgirl.
right. That whole
It's
thing is
Batgirl.
really funny, where she's having to do driver's ed.
Yeah.
Then is that this episode?
No, that was in the Gearhead.
Oh, that was in Gearhead because that's all about driving. I wish
Yeah.
we talked about this there because there's that weird bit where she's like, no, I can drive. I don't have a driver's license, but here's my learner's permit. And throws it, and I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know what it means.
That's like in Transformers 4 when the FBI agent shows up and he's like, my face is my warrant.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Also, it should be noted, if Harley does have a learner's permit, Batgirl is not in this episode. So as far as we know, that Harley is Batgirl.
Oh, it's possible. Mm-hmm. That was the big reveal they were going to do in season 6. So, what do you think of Wrath's costume?
It's Catman.
Because the color of it is strange. I don't know what the choice is of orange. Is orange like the color of Wrath? Because I don't think it is.
No, I think of the color of grapes when I think of Wrath.
Okay. But anyway, I think of either purple or green, but not orange. What I like about it is that the W looks kind of like a bat flipped upside down. It doesn't look like Batman's bat, but it does look like a bat flipped upside down. And I also think it's kind of cool to take that logo and put it in the mask.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that is pretty cool.
I like that. I don't know if you caught that, but he's got a W here, but he's also got a W in his mask.
Yeah, no, I didn't really think about that until now. Yeah.
I like that. The problem is with Scorn, they're stuck with an S, so they can't do anything cool with it at all. It's just, we got an S. My name is Scorn. Like, all right. In that way, he's a typical, lame kid sidekick.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, that it works perfectly. You have the cool one, and then you have his lamer.
We gotta pick another deadly sin. What are you gonna be? Yeah, Scorn. How are you scorned? I don't know. Same way Wrath was scorned.
What would their Batgirl be?
Gluttony? I don't know.
Gluttony? No, that was Clue Master.
Oh, that's right, that was Clue Master. I was just trying to pick another deadly sin we hadn't covered yet. I don't know. It's the first one that came to mind. Bob the Hun, Wrath's costume is what it is in the comic books. It's pretty straight adaptation. Oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that these were comic characters. I could have looked that up. Or I should have looked that up. I don't know why. I assumed that those must have been made up for this show, but I didn't think to look it up.
Yeah, I figured that they were probably comic book characters, but I'd never seen them in anything.
Now I'm wondering
I don't remember.
Now I'm wondering if anything is original to this show. Gamer Sky Ratchet, they only... Hi there, that's the name I don't recognize. They only replaced the purple in the costume with red, which is better. I agree, that probably doesn't clash as much. You know, sometimes...
Oh, Wrath is from the comics, but Scorn isn't. So that's why Wrath is a cooler costume than Scorn.
I was giving them too much credit. Okay, so this is going to be a really, really silly, nitpicky criticism. Who puts somebody's picture on a dartboard and then throws darts at it? Like, usually you'd have it on a wall, or you'd have a dartboard that you made out of somebody's face. I guess you're just not wanting to put anything in your walls.
And then he's not even throwing darts.
No, he's throwing Ratharangs.
Yeah. Stupid Ratharangs.
Robert Wild, this show is also one of the first appearances of Black Mask in media. I either didn't know or forgot Black Mask was in the show.
Yep. And ventriloquist is Homer Simpson in this show.
I didn't know that. So, it's also interesting that we haven't had until right now a Penguin episode tonight, because Penguin is all over the show, and I never liked their Penguin.
Yeah. No, if I got to do Batman, the
Oh, Game
Penguin would
Skyratchet
not
says,
be one of
I
the
guess,
first.
I guess somebody, I guess this guy came out of the woodwork and really knows the show. See, people are into this show, Austin. Some of the characters
Oh,
are
one
original,
of them.
like Temblor, Toymaker. Interesting, they have a character named Toymaker that's not just, I guess Dollmaker is a thing. And who am I thinking of? It's
Isn't there a
late.
Superman villain?
It's late. What's the Superman villain I'm thinking of? Yeah, but it's not Toymaker, is it? Toyman. It's just Toyman.
Oh.
So that's weird. Dave, Dave. Really? Is it an AI? Did they do an AI named Dave? Everywhere Man and Rumor. Okay. None of that caught on. Nobody has redone those characters and other things and made them more popular.
Hey, now, there is that part in the Batman movie when Riddler rips his mask off to reveal that he's Dave.
Robert Wilde, Ventriloquist is one of my favorite lesser-known Batman villains. In Batman circles, I think that he is kind of oddly popular, and people have been wanting to see a live adaptation for him for a long time. We got it in Gotham, you know how that show is.
Yeah, because I think Ventriloquist is later, but he very much feels like he could have been a 40s Batman villain.
Yeah.
So he just, while he is like a more like recent, like comparatively villain, he feels like he could have always been there, and it makes it feel like he's more important, I guess. I don't know, like
yeah, he feels like a thing that was missing in the stable all along. It's like, how did we not have that? Boy, that Scorn costume looks even worse now that I know that it was made up for this show. Bob the Honey is an AI made by Hugo Strange. Man, that is so on the nose. What are you doing, Dave? Let's make Dave the AI. That'll be really clever. Oh, and Brandon Routh voiced a character named Everywhere Man.
Yep.
I'm curious to go through the show more.
Which is crazy, because this would have been around when he was Superman.
I remember really liking the first Ventriloquist episode in this show because they do that really weird giant Scarface.
Yep, yeah, when he's just holding the ventriloquist.
It's awesome.
Scarface is another one of those villains that like Arkham really underutilized, where he's just like a puppet in the background of like most of the games, but he's like in most of them.
Oh, that's true. Where he's just sitting there and he'll have like a. Didn't they just have him with like a TV that he's holding or something with Joker on the TV? Wasn't that a thing?
Well, Joker's holding him quite a bit. He's quite a bit in the first Arkham Asylum.
That's right.
And at the end, yeah, Joker's like playing with him and throws him aside. I feel like he makes a cameo in City.
Brian, I can't tell if you're joking or not when you bring up the Batman 2020 or the new Batman movie. I'm not seeing it until Sunday morning. No, Austin
everything that I've said is in that.
He's just
movie.
Making up things that happen. And go back and
3 hours.
Look at all of the things that he said. It's all preposterous and would not be in that movie.
It's 3 hours. There is absolutely half an hour where Batman dies and goes back in time.
Stop it! Stop it! I just love that you're saying that. When people were asking me in the non-spoiler how we felt about that I did on Wednesday, does this seem like a world where like Ra's al Ghul could exist? And you're like, there's time travel in this movie, you guys.
I mean, I don't buy that Robin can exist, but I do buy that Batman.
Yeah, people are like, could Robin exist in this world? No, but there's freaking time travel.
Well, especially because they set up that he's got that AI that he talks to that's named Robin.
Jack Napier.
So I can't Jarvis it.
Jack Napier. I can't believe that Onomatopoeia was in the Batman. Was in the new Batman movie.
That was also weird, especially because they had Robert Pattinson narrate it. I don't know. That was a choice.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be Tony Todd in the first place, and it was once again they ripped the thing out from under him, gave it as a voice role to the guy playing the main character.
He was really happy to come in and go wham,
pow. Kablamo. See,
Suck.
I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really cool that we're getting to end tonight on a big, like, multiple villain episode. And I don't know how much we did that in this show, because we did that a lot in animated series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's always fun to have Batman villains just kind of riff off of each other.
And kind of a eclectic assortment of villains, too. Because, I mean, Joker and Penguin we put together quite a bit in the show. I mean, they're in the movie. But, like, you know, Scarface with Killer Croc.
Yep. The Lizard.
I really like how when you get to the end of this fight and we beat these guys, I can't remember if it's Batman or Robin, which one says it. I think it's Robin, who's like, you came to our house?
It is Robin, yeah.
Because it's like, this was a dumb move, and I don't know why they do it. Like, it is really stupid. It's like, let's go to where they have the home field advantage at the Batcave, which has to have all kinds of protocol for, you know, intruders and stuff.
At least 10, I would think.
What now?
I said I would think there's at least 10.
What is making them think this is a good idea?
Yeah, I don't know. You hit Protocol 10 and it turns everybody in the cave into a zombie.
Bob the Hun having Raph's parents get shot by a cop was too dark, apparently. How do people know about this character? I've never heard of this guy.
Wikipedia. I mean, that seems like the obvious thing to do for an anti-Batman.
Sure. But yeah, in this, they just go to jail. And it seems, I guess, a little bit harder to appreciate the revenge motive when they're avenging people that are just in jail. But that's also a real Saturday morning cartoon.
I wonder where Batman's parents went. Like, they went to the good version of jail. They went to a spa, and then he became Batman.
Well, that's actually a really good point. Like, if your Batman's parents are dead, why can't you have anybody else off screen from before be
maybe
dead?
We can't
like,
say that cops killed his parents. Like, maybe that's the step that's too far, and they figured you kind of lose the point.
I see what you're saying. Maybe so. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we don't bring up Batman's like actual initial motivation nearly as much in the show as we do in other things. And when it does come up, it's a big deal.
Well, and this Batman's not as brooding, so
right.
like.
No, there is kind of an emphasis on the wealth a little bit. Where it's like, I mean, yeah, his parents had to get killed, but it's kind of more just that he needed a lot of cash.
He's the Garth Ennis Punisher. His parents died or what set him off on that, but he was going to do it anyway.
So do you mind that... Sorry, we got to talk about the scene. Do you mind that Joker just shows up out of nowhere at the end of this and hits them with laughing gas so that people won't know what Batman's identity is? Because I don't mind it at all, and I feel like I should. I think it's hilarious.
No, it's super convenient, but it's just kind of funny, especially because Batman and Robin are like, oh, that solves that issue.
And I mean, they're not dead, but they're vegetables. They might as well be. And I'm assuming this isn't laughing gas that wears off, because if it was, they would have reason to be really concerned about this later.
No, they're just dead.
No, they're not dead. See, they're
say
laughing. They're in the back of this car. They're not dead.
No, they're dead. They were a still image.
Stop that. They were
Their
no,
bodies
they were moving.
are twitching. Their bodies are twitching. It's a part of death. They haven't set into rigor mortis yet.
Senior Sticks, the alarm in the Batcave is repeating intruder. Intruder alert! Intruder alert!
Intruder
Shut
alert.
up! Robert, I don't think they were going for a tragic or sympathetic take on Wrath. No, absolutely not. That is true. Bob the Hun Wrath was almost in the Arkham games. I didn't know that. Well, I mean, obviously, I didn't know who that was until today.
He's probably almost an Arkham Knight. Imagine if Arkham Knight comes out, it's like, oh, the playable characters: Batman, Harley, Catwoman, Robin, Nightwing, and Wrath.
You couldn't have made that story any worse with that, I don't think.
I mean, what if Jason Todd was like, he pulled off his mask and he was like, I'm Wrath, but I'm also Jason Todd.
He just keeps going.
Yeah,
And I'm Hush! And I'm, yeah.
Yeah, because he's got like the Red Hood mask under the Arkham Knight mask, so he could have just kept going.
Which is preposterous. Well, anyway, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Sorry about the double, the 2 streams that we had to do, but it seems like the second one we didn't have, any lag problems or anything, so that's lucky.
One person says, they're not dead, I can see their parachutes.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's great.
We're going to be back Sunday night for a discussion on the Batman. We're going to do a full-blown spoiler cast. We're going to have a big panel for that because a lot of folks that we work with really wanted to come and talk to us about that. So I was going to keep it small, but I've decided to just open the floodgates, and we're going to have Dan that night, and Austin's going to be there, and possibly DJ, and Kareem is going to join us. We're going to have a big crowd. So come and hang out with us, and we're going to talk at length about the Batman. I'm going to try to see it again tomorrow night before we talk about it on Sunday. And in the meantime, I'm
seeing it in like 10 hours.
You saw it already, and you're going to see it again.
And I've already spoiled most of it in this video already, so... Sorry.
Nobody take him too seriously. Anyway, thanks again, guys. Sure appreciate you, and we will see you again in a couple of days. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Now I will travel back in time like the Batman.
Later, folks. The Day Ghost. Brr.
Captain Logan.
Now you just sound like a creepy serial killer.
Oh.
Anyway, okay, I'll read this real quick. AMC Comics, Captain Austin, real quick, which of the Batmobiles did you prefer? I don't know if I have a preference.
We made along the way. I don't know.
I don't know if I have a preference.
Maybe the second one? I don't know. They're both pretty good. I like their Batmobile.